Did the did the video already start? Sorry. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Kraken didn't show up for the first period and a half. It was another stinker of a game. They lose 6-2, so it's another 6-2 score. The theme of the road trip seems to be 6-2 scores. Just this one is more like the one in Columbus than the one the day before in Buffalo. And unfortunately, once again, the Kraken are going to catch a bit of a break because if you couldn't already tell, my voice is currently hanging on by a thread. I do feel a lot better than I sound, but boy, has it been an up and down evening with even being able to get much out at all. So it's probably going to be on the shorter end, and quite honestly, I feel like that's for the best, because if you watched all of this game like I did, well, you deserve to have a little bit more time back and probably don't need to be spending another 20 minutes watching a recap of this game. Now, just to be clear, when I say the Kraken didn't show up for the game, I'm not trying to be overly negative. Not that I think anybody's really going to have a problem with me being overly critical of the team after this game. That's something that even Matty Beniers said afterwards. Of course, I will say for his part, he and that line continue to be the one part of this team that does seem to show up game after game, and they're the one continuing bright spot of this team, which, as we get into the rest of the season, where the Kraken at this point, I think we can put a fork in them. They're done. They're not making the playoffs. So the rest of the season, we're going to focus a little bit more on where the future of the team is headed, since that's really all we can look to. And that is with guys like Matty Beniers, Shane Wright, Capo Caco, and, well, a couple of the contracts that are going to be with them for a while, like Chandler Stevenson, and Brandon Montour had an okay game. Anyway, with all that said, let's just get right into the game before my voice gives out entirely. We can just pretty much go goal by goal, at least through the first period, since that's pretty much all there were, and they were all Detroit goals. Now, when the first goal happens, about 3 minutes in, I did make the mistake of putting out that it hadn't been a bad start for the Kraken, but they were down 1-0. Boy, oh boy, did I not know what was coming. This first goal, it's the fourth line out on the ice, and it's just a wide open shot from the slot. A pass from the low face-off circle comes up to the high slot for Larkin. He fires it off. It apparently gets a piece of a guy on the way into the net, so Larkin doesn't technically get the goal. It's Marco Kasper that technically gets the goal. So either way, it doesn't really matter. The reason this goal goes in is because Larkin is left alone in the high slot with all three forwards of that fourth line just kind of standing there watching, none of them really covering anybody in particular. You've got Tanev out to the side. That's maybe the one guy you can say is doing something. He's at least vaguely near the passing lane that this puck goes through to get to Larkin, but the other two are just kind of standing there watching, and I guess they got to watch Larkin get off a good shot and the first goal of the game. Really not a ton of chance for Grubauer. He's partially screened. And, well, again, everything else that we just talked about, with the team basically not playing defense in front of him, save for the one defenseman that's covering the guy in front of the net that's trying to get that screen off. But anyway, like I said, the Kraken hadn't been playing terribly up until that point. Not that anybody really wants to hear that after how the game ends up going, but they'd been controlling things, getting a few shots off on goal, and yeah, really had been playing well up until that chance for Larkin. Of course, 11 seconds later, we forget about all of that because it's 2-0 Red Wings as they get right into the offensive end, force a face-off in the Kraken end, and right off that face-off, Chandler Stevenson must have forgotten that he was one of the players on the ice, because he just lets JT Compher slide in right behind him, and he's wide open then to tip a shot in, as it's a shot pass that's going right to Compher to get that redirect. He gets the redirect off. Again, not really much of a chance for Grubauer than that I hope it hits him. It doesn't. 2-0 Red Wings. Then a couple minutes later, Detroit gets their first power play of the game, which their power play has been very dangerous since making the coaching change at the Christmas break, firing their coach the day after Christmas or the day before Christmas. Either way, it was an unceremonious time to make a coaching change, but it seems to have worked for them as they lost their first game back from the break and then had won 6 straight, now 7, but 6 coming into this game, making it 7 with this one. And during that time, their power play has been scoring, coming into the game, on 50% of their chances, and that only went up after this one. And this first power play, it doesn't take them long. They win the faceoff back, and then the Kraken, look, I get that you're on the penalty kill, so you're a man down. So sure, at least one guy or maybe even a couple are going to be a little bit more open. There's going to be more space for the opposing team to move around in the offensive end. We know how power plays work. That's just part of being a man down. That's why you don't go to the penalty box against teams that are really rolling on the power play. but there's still absolutely no excuse whatsoever for leaving an entire half of your defensive end completely open. And that's what the Kraken do, allowing Alex DeBrincat to get out to the far side. He is quite literally the only player on that side of the Kraken side of the ice. So the pass gets over to him. He fires off the one-time shot. And sure, I suppose if you really want to nitpick Grubauer here, he could probably have read the situation a little bit better, seeing that his entire team was crowding two guys on one side and figured that if something dangerous was going to happen, it probably would come from the other and gotten over a little bit quicker. But it's hard to really blame him for four guys just getting as far away from this shot as possible. It finds the back of the net. It's well placed by DeBrincat, and just like that, it's 3-0. Grubauer, having made just one save at this point, is pulled. Decord goes back into the game after having played the night before, and we're not even 7 minutes into the first period. And just to be clear one more time, because I feel like anybody that just looks at the box score of this game is going to get the idea that Grubauer's the one that didn't show up to play this game, and just assumed that it started at 1 o'clock like the previous day rather than at noon. But as we've seen, it's really the team in front of him that is doing him absolutely no favors for the second straight start, and pulling Grubauer here was as much a mercy to him as it was trying to send the team a message. But honestly, even if you think differently and you do want to put this all on Grubauer, which I strongly disagree, but whatever, it's not like it really matters all that much, because whatever the reason for the goaltender change was, if it was to send a message, that message doesn't get through. If it was to, get Grubauer out of there because he didn't think he was playing well, well, it turns out it didn't really matter who the Kraken had in net, because just a couple minutes later, it's 4-0 with Decord in net, as the Kraken, the Kraken have numbers coming back on the back check as this play is transitioning through the neutral zone, but you might not believe me when I say that and then show you this screenshot of the goal happening where there's only one Kraken player that isn't Decord in the shot. Then obviously then the pass gets through all of that to the guy standing right on the far side. It's Patrick Kane, who just kind of coasted right up to that back door. He stands there, the pass gets to him, and he just takes as much time as he wants, has a little picnic there by the side of the net, and then eventually just kind of pushes it in to get the goal and make it 4-0, and we're hardly even to the halfway point of the period. And at this point, we've seen some truly awful defense throughout the course of the season, but even in just the first 9 minutes of this game, and this might take the cake for the worst of all of it. In just seconds, the Kraken somehow managed to go from this, where they have 4 Kraken players in their end of the ice, across the blue line to just 2 Red Wings, to somehow, within 1-2 seconds, this. 3 Red Wings around Vince Dunn in front of the net. He does everything he possibly can. It somehow turned into a 3-on-1 when it was previously a 2-on-4. And it's an easy goal as the pass gets through. Dunn isn't able to break it up. It's absolutely bewildering how badly played this is defensively. I don't think you can play worse defense, honestly, if you tried. It's almost funny. Again, from this to that. 4-on-2, 1-on-3. I don't know. I don't know how anybody ever thought a team that plays defense like that consistently over the course of a season never had a chance at the playoffs, but somehow we talked our way into it. Again, they're not making it at this point. There's just no way playing like that midway through the season. There's no way they're figuring it out in time to go on a run. And I'm genuinely sorry for anybody that wants to cling on to that last strand of hope until it's mathematically eliminated. I totally understand. I really wish I could get there with you, but I just can't. Not after watching what happened in Columbus and not after watching this. Even the game against the Sabres kind of gave the Kraken at least 3 of those goals. Now the Kraken still earned 3 of them, and that was enough to beat the Sabres, but you don't get to play the Sabres for the next 40 games, so I wish I could say something different, but it's over. It's just over. Now, mercifully, for Decord at least, the Kraken managed to play passable defense, I guess, the rest of the period. They at least don't give up another goal until the second. But a few minutes into the second, they give Detroit their second power play of the game, and this one takes a little bit longer to score, but eventually it does. Though I suppose, honestly, with this goal alone, it's nothing like the 4 in the first period. If you put this one in a vacuum or just pretend the first period didn't happen and say that this is the first period, this is the first goal of the game, the way the Kraken played the first period, I'm not sure that they realized the game had started until the start of the second period. But this is one you can kind of excuse. It's a couple of unfortunate bounces for the Kraken, and yeah, maybe you'd want them to be a little bit more aggressive on the penalty kill. But I don't think it's really one that you would think much of if it wasn't for everything that we had seen in the 20 previous minutes of that first period. It's a shot from well out that unfortunately gets the inside of the knee of Mahura out in front, and then also gets the post, and just a couple of bad bounces gets into the net behind Decord. But because of everything that happened in the first period, this is the second power play goal on as many attempts for the Red Wings, and now it's 5-0 early on in the second period. With all that having been said, though, when we get to the next Detroit power play, the third one of the game towards the end of the second period, with really nothing notable happening in the middle part of the second, the Kraken with no real pushback whatsoever. I suppose at least they haven't really given Detroit very many more chances to make it 6-0 until they send Detroit back to this third power play, where the way they play this power play, it kind of makes you feel like even if those two lucky bounces off Mahura and the post hadn't happened, they probably still would have found a way to score in the last few seconds of that power play, because this one, they really forced Decord to make a heroic effort after heroic effort after heroic effort to keep the puck out, until eventually it's just one too many, and one that he just never has a chance on, as all four Kraken penalty killers just let Dylan Larkin stand all alone in the low slot near the top of the crease. Not one of them even within a stick's reach distance of Larkin, so that none of them have even a chance to get in there and try and hook him to prevent a shot getting off, much less contest the shot in any way. So when the pass gets through, with nobody even really taking up that passing lane, they're all taking away passing lanes to the guys way out on the far side in much less dangerous shooting areas than the guy in the most dangerous shooting area of them all. So Larkin gets the pass to him and just puts it right into the far side of the net. Absolutely no chance for Decord. He's left all alone on an island, just like Grubauer was at the start of the game, and also like he was after Grubauer was pulled. And it's 6-0 Red Wings late in the second, as they're now 3 for 3 on the power play. And the Kraken, the way they're playing would probably have lost to the majority of the AHL teams. Now, not long after this, the Kraken do get their second power play of the game. They had one late in the first period, which they got a couple of shots on, but aren't able to score on the worst penalty kill in the entire NHL by some margin, and they've been the worst penalty kill in the NHL the entire season. So the fact that the Kraken power play couldn't score on them, or at least look anywhere near as dangerous as the Detroit power play looked against the Kraken, is kind of embarrassing in its own right. And then this power play is going even less of anywhere. They're getting absolutely nothing to go for them, or hardly even getting into the offensive end, much less getting shots on net through the course of it. And then finally, in the last few seconds, the Kraken, one last gasp, rush down the ice. A pass from Dunn finds Schwartz in transition as he gets into the offensive end. He gets it across to Bjorkstrand, who's gotten behind everybody. Bjorkstrand skates in and puts it perfectly into the top corner to get the power play goal, and the Kraken at least break up the shutout, and we would go to the intermission with the score then 6-1. And bless them for trying. It is their job, but the guys at the desk at least give it the old college try to keep people interested in watching the third by pointing out that the Kraken have scored 5 goals in a period. They've even scored 6 goals in a period once, so technically it's possible that Detroit could blow this lead, though very unlikely. And it becomes even less likely when it takes the Kraken 7-8 minutes into the third period to make it 6-2. They are eventually able to do it. A nice play by that first line. Beniers, Kakko, and Schwartz. It's Kakko that wins a battle down in the corner in the offensive end. He gets it out to Schwartz. Schwartz, with a little time and space of, well, not that much time, but a little bit of space anyway, finds Beniers wide open in low slot. Beniers, a one-time shot, finds the back of the net. A nice play from that line. Once again, Kakko gets shoved around before the Kraken can celebrate the goal. Not that there would have been much celebrating. They pretty much knew they were dead in the water at this point. Either way, for whatever reason, teams really don't like it when Kaapo Kakko has anything to do with a goal for whatever reason. So he ends up going to the box for a roughing. It's traded roughing call, so we go to 4-on-4 immediately after this goal. So you don't see traded penalties too much after a goal is scored, but we get that here. And then the back half of the third is a lot of Detroit power plays as the Kraken, I guess, realized that this game was already lost, and considering how bad the penalty kill had gone so far, they either wanted to try to make up for it, at least get the moral victory of saying that they shut down the Detroit power play in the third period with a few opportunities, and they did do that. Detroit doesn't score again. Then they got a lot more practice on the penalty kill, which apparently they needed. But in the end, it's still another 6-2 loss, and one that, yeah, I think pretty safely kills whatever hope we had that this team was going to put something together and go on a run. They've got Pittsburgh here coming up, which is a team that's starting to figure it out, kind of like the last 3 teams they've already played on this road trip. They were able to at least make something happen against Buffalo and slow them down. The one team in the East that I would be kind of okay with heating up and making the playoffs. They are going through a stretch that we as Seattle fans are all too familiar with the Mariners not making the playoffs. It's almost even more impressive how long it's been for Buffalo not having made it, considering how much easier it is in the NHL to make the playoffs than the MLB. But I digress. The point is, Pittsburgh's starting to figure it out. They will be missing Malkin, but I mean, the way the Kraken played this game and played the Columbus game, I don't know that I have a ton of faith that it really matters who Pittsburgh puts out on the ice. And then they'll get one of the best teams in the NHL so far this season in Winnipeg with the Jets to end the road trip before coming home and facing, well, at least a couple of the teams they faced on this road trip. So, whoopee. But anyway, for this game specifically, I think that can pretty much do it for the sake of my voice and your time to not spend too much more time belaboring the points that we've already gone over time and time again about the Kraken not playing well defensively. I mean, just straight up not showing up for this first period in Benir's own words. And as one of the few guys playing well, he has every right to be one of the ones saying that. And believe me, he's not going to point out that he's one of the few guys playing well. He knows full well that he's a part of this team that keeps collapsing on itself. But that first line, I suppose, for what it's worth, with this season going down the toilet, if there is one group of players that you wanted to be playing well right now, it is 2 of the young guys that are hopefully going to be a part of the long-term future of this team. And I only say hopefully because they still have to go through the extension process with Kaapo Kakko, and given how things are going, I mean, Kaapo Kakko has to be part of that, and I don't know how interested he's going to be in sticking around with this mess, but at least things seem to be going well for him with Beniers. He's definitely getting chances in the top 6, which is what he wanted in New York with the Rangers and wasn't getting. So maybe he signs a 2-3 year deal to get more of those top 6 minutes, start getting those numbers up. And then if things still aren't going well, then maybe he can go try and find greener pastures there. As far as Kraken fans are concerned, I think we've seen more than enough from Kaapo Kakko to hope that he signs a long-term deal and stays here for quite a while, putting up points with Matty Beniers on that first line. And then hopefully Shane Wright, who also has been playing decently well. He has a moment or 2 per game. He was on the ice for that bewildering shift of 4-on-2 to 1-on-3. He is one of the 3 guys, along with Tolvanen and Larson, that just disappear from that play, and suddenly it's Vince Dunn all alone with 3 Red Wings, where the third one even came from, who knows? But the 2 guys that were in that shot and one more get past all of the Kraken players. And yeah, anyway, the point is, Wright, he still has some rookie moments, but for the most part, he's been playing pretty well. He picked up that point with a nice pass out to McCann to get one of the shots for Kakko there in the previous game against Buffalo. So he's generally been playing pretty well. And yeah, at least the young guys are looking good. And as long as they can figure out how to get some better signings and better guys around them. I mean, Schwartz, 2 more points in this game, so he's definitely doing his part. But boy, oh boy, I mean, I don't know what the Kraken do with Stevenson, but he showed once again that he is, I mean, for everything that went wrong for Daniel Sprong as far as how he plays defensively, he just kind of drifts around aimlessly in the defensive end, but somehow he still seems more useful defensively than Chandler Stevenson right now. So I don't know. I don't know what you do about that. I think it's something like $2 to $2.5 million that they'd have in dead cap if they just bought him out in the offseason for the next 6 years. So I mean, the cap's going to go up, so maybe you can afford to have $2.5 million in dead cap the next 6 years, and that's better than whatever you're getting from Stevenson. I mean, you can't just put him out on the ice whenever you're in the offensive end and just hope you never go to the defensive end. That's not really how it works. If it was, then Daniel Sprong would probably still be playing with this team. He probably would have stayed with the team after that playoff run, but yeah, it's that part's tough. Anyway, I'm rambling, and I said I'd get you out of here, so there's no Kraken 3 stars in this one. I suppose the 3 stars, I'll go with what Patreon said. 3 stars is always brought to you by Patreon, and well, they pointed out that maybe the 3 stars of this game are anybody that actually watched all of it. Maybe that's a character flaw for those of us that can't tear ourselves away from this team even when they're begging us to do so. But for those of us that stuck it out for this entire game, congratulations. For those of you that stuck it out to the end of this video, you know what? You're my star for this game. Thank you for making it here. And until next time, where hopefully the Kraken at least play like an NHL team and show up for the first period. Stay safe out there. Be good to each other. God bless. And go Kraken.